You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Unfathomable is probably the word we would use to describe Hurricane Ida this morning. As we reach the 7 a.m. hour in Louisiana, we are continuing to track this extremely powerful Category 4 hurricane, which currently has 150 mph winds and a pressure of 933. The National Hurricane Center's update also issued a forecast advisory to predict a 155 mph landfall, which is right next to Category 5 status, would you believe? I can't even contemplate what we would see if this storm made a Category 5 landfall in Louisiana. We may be about to find out. Let's hope not. But at the moment, it is just 10 mph shy of that status, reserved only for the most intense tropical cyclones on the planet. My name is Nathan Foy and I'm joined by our team this hour: Isaac, Gabriel, Joey, Jonesy, Noah and Walter. This storm will be making landfall in a few hours' time and is ticking down the miles before it gets there, around 50 to go. Let's go to Jonesy with the latest information.
Thank you, Nathan. So, this was supposed to be an intermediate advisory, but as we know, they issued it up to 150 miles an hour at their last full advisory. This is what they had at their peak. They did not want to wait till 11 a.m. for a full advisory, so instead of an intermediate advisory, we get this special advisory. Life-threatening storm surge and hurricane-force winds reaching the coast of southeastern Louisiana. Extremely dangerous Category 4 Hurricane Ida expected to make landfall in southeastern Louisiana in the next few hours. The location is at 28.5 degrees north and 89.6 degrees west, about 50 miles southwest of the mouth of the Mississippi River, about 100 miles southeast of Houma, Louisiana. The winds are at 150 miles an hour with a pressure of 933 millibars, and it's moving northwest at 15 miles an hour. A storm surge warning is in effect from east of Rockefeller Wildlife Refuge, Louisiana, to the Alabama-Florida border, and including Vermilion Bay, Lake Pontchartrain, Lake Maurepas, Lake Bourne, and Mobile Bay. A hurricane warning is in effect for intracoastal city Louisiana to the mouth of the river, and including Lake Pontchartrain, Lake Maurepas, and metropolitan New Orleans. A tropical storm warning is in effect from Cameron, Louisiana, to west of the intracoastal city Louisiana and mouth of the Pearl River to the Alabama-Florida border. I would also like to mention that these tropical storm warnings go inland as far north as the Louisiana-Arkansas border for Louisiana and as far north as Jackson, Mississippi in Mississippi. A storm surge warning means that there is a danger of life-threatening inundation from rising water moving inland from the coastline in the indicated locations. For a depiction of areas at risk, please see the storm surge watch warning graphics available at hurricanes.gov. This is a life-threatening situation. Persons located within these areas should take all necessary actions to protect life and property from rising water and the potential for other dangerous conditions. Promptly follow evacuation and other instructions from local officials. A hurricane warning means that hurricane conditions are expected somewhere within the warning area. A tropical storm warning means that tropical storm conditions are expected somewhere within the warning area. For storm information specific to your area, including possible inland watches and warnings, please monitor products issued by your local National Weather Service office. At 7 a.m., the eye of Ida was at the spot that I said and moving at 15 miles an hour. And this general motion should continue through tonight and early Monday, followed by a slower northward motion on Monday afternoon. A northeastward turn is forecasted by Monday night. On the forecast track, the center of Ida will make landfall along the coast of southeastern Louisiana within the hurricane warning area late this morning or early this afternoon. is forecast to move well inland over portions of Louisiana and western Mississippi on Monday and Monday night. Reports from the Air Force Reserve and NOAA Hurricane Hunter aircraft indicate that the winds are near 150 miles an hour with higher gusts that have been found. Ida is extremely dangerous Category 4 hurricane on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale. Some additional strengthening is forecasted, and Ida is expected to be an extremely dangerous major hurricane when it makes landfall along the coast. Rapid weakening is expected after landfall. Hurricane force winds extend outward up to 50 miles from the center, and tropical storm force winds extend outward up to 140 miles. An elevated NOAA Seaman station at Pilot Station East near Southwest Pass recently reported a sustained wind of 92 miles an hour and a gust to 113. Another elevated Seaman station at Southwest Pass recently reported a sustained wind of 932, and as mentioned, 933 is the pressure. Here are the key messages. Hazards affecting land. Key messages can be found in the discussion, which we will be reading those key messages later on in this hour. Storm surge. The combination of a dangerous storm surge and the tide will cause normally dry areas near the coast to be flooded by rising waters moving inland from the shoreline. The water could reach the following heights above ground somewhere in the indicated areas if peak surge occurs at the time of high tide. Port Fourchon, Louisiana to mouth of the Mississippi River, 12 to 16 feet. Morgan City to Port Fourchon, Louisiana, 8 to 12 feet. Mouth of the Mississippi River to Bay St. Louis, including Lake Bourne, 8 to 12 feet. Burns Point to Morgan City, Louisiana, 6 to 9 feet. Bay St. Louis, Mississippi to Ocean Springs, Mississippi, 6 to 9 feet. Lake Pontchartrain, 5 to 8 feet. Ocean Springs, Mississippi to the Mississippi-Alabama border, 4 to 7 feet. Intracoastal City, Louisiana to Burns Point, Louisiana, including Vermilion Bay, 4 to 6 feet. Lake Maurepas, 4 to 6 feet. Pecan Island to Intracoastal City, Louisiana, 2 to 4 feet. Mississippi-Alabama border to Alabama-Florida border, including Mobile Bay, 3 to 5 feet. Sabine Pass to Pecan Island, Louisiana, 1 to 3 feet. Alabama-Florida border to Okaloosa-Walton County line, including Pensacola Bay, 1 to 3 feet. Overtopping of local levees outside the hurricane and storm damage risk reduction system is possible where local inundation values may be higher than those shown above. The deepest water will occur along the immediate coastline near and to the east of the landfall location, where the surge will be accompanied by large and dangerous waves. Surge-related flooding depends on the relative timing of the surge and tidal cycle and can vary greatly over short distances. For information for your area, please see products issued by your local National Weather Service office. Wind. Catastrophic wind damage is likely where the core of Ida moves onshore along the southeast coast of Louisiana in the next few hours. Hurricane conditions are expected in the hurricane warning area along the Louisiana coast beginning by later this morning, with tropical storm conditions already ongoing. These conditions will spread inland over portions of Louisiana and Mississippi tonight and tomorrow. Rainfall. Heavy rainfall from Ida will begin to impact the southeast Louisiana coast, and it has already, spreading northeastward into the lower Mississippi Valley later today into Monday. Total rainfall accumulations of 10 to 18 inches with isolated maximum amounts of 24 inches are possible across southeast Louisiana into far southern Mississippi through Monday. This is likely to result in life-threatening flash and urban flooding and significant riverine flooding impacts. Ida is then forecasted to turn to the northeast early Monday and track across the Middle Tennessee Valley and Ohio Valley through Wednesday, producing the following rainfall totals. Coastal Alabama to the far western Florida Panhandle, 5 to 10 inches with isolated maximum amounts of 15 inches today through Tuesday morning. Central Mississippi, 4 to 8 inches with isolated maximum amounts of 12 inches tonight through Monday night. Middle Tennessee Valley to the Ohio Valley, 3 to 6 inches with isolated higher amounts Tuesday into Wednesday. And they do not list the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast, but I did see 2 to 4 to 6 inches of rain with isolated higher amounts, and that will be Wednesday and Thursday. These rainfall totals will result in considerable flash and riverine flooding. Tornadoes. Tornadoes will be possible today into Monday from southeast Louisiana across southeast Mississippi and southwest Alabama to the western Florida panhandle. There is a 5% risk of tornadoes for today and tomorrow, and a 2% risk for Tuesday. Surf. Swells are beginning to reach the northern Gulf Coast and will likely continue to affect that area through Monday. These swells are likely to cause life threatening surge and rip current conditions. Please consult products from your local weather office. And now for what they forecast. We have 150 miles an hour right now. In 12 hours, they predict 155 miles an hour. They have it offshore, but we know there's less than 12 hours until landfall. In 24 hours, they expect it to be down to 80 miles an hour, and this is where the inland points begin. 50 miles an hour in 36 hours, 35 miles an hour in 48, 30 in 60, 25 in 72. It will be turned post-tropical at and be 25 miles an hour at the 96-hour point, and it will be dissipated, excuse me, it's 8 a.m., in 120 hours. Key messages from them. But before I read that, this is what is important. This special advisory is issued to raise the 12-hour forecast intensity to 135 knots, aka 155 miles an hour, but it is possible that Ida could peak slightly above that before landfall occurs, which if it did, that would be 140 knots, 160 miles an hour, that would be a Cat 5. Here are your key messages. Extremely life-threatening storm surge inundation of 9 feet or greater above ground level is imminent somewhere within the area from Burns Point, Louisiana to Ocean Springs, Mississippi. Overtopping the local levees outside the hurricane and storm damage risk reduction system is possible where local inundation values may be higher. Interest throughout the storm surge warning area should follow any advice given by local officials. Number 2. Catastrophic wind damage is likely where the core of Ida moves onshore along the southeast coast of Louisiana in the next few hours. Hurricane force winds are expected today within the hurricane warning area along the Louisiana coast, including metropolis New Orleans. 3. Damaging winds, especially in gusts, will spread inland near the track of the center of Ida across portions of southeastern Louisiana and southwestern Mississippi today through early Monday. These winds will likely lead to widespread tree damage and power outages. And finally, number 4. Ida will produce heavy rainfall today through Monday across the central Gulf Coast from southeastern Louisiana, coastal Mississippi, to far southwestern Alabama, resulting in considerable to life-threatening flash and urban flooding and significant river flooding impacts. As Ida moves inland, significant flooding impacts are possible across portions of the lower Mississippi, Tennessee, and Ohio valleys through Wednesday. The next complete advisory will be at 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern, so 2 hours, 45 minutes from now. There are hourly updates, though. That will come out in 45 minutes. Back
Blimey.
to you, Nathan.
That took you over 10 minutes, I think. But all of that information, every line as important as the last. Here is the storm on visible imagery right now. It does appear to have slowed down when you look at that 1 minute visible. Of course, that's a short time. But it does appear to have slowed down, but it's still moving west-northwest, interestingly. So I'm not sure, Jonesy, whether that landfall will be as early as you might think. If it continues on this trend, we'll have to see what happens next. That's the big question at this point. We also have several other people who have joined us, but first let's talk to Thomas Schwent. You were streaming with us overnight last night. I think I can't remember now. I think I had you in my ear when I was half asleep overnight getting rest. What are your thoughts looking at this very strong Category 4 hurricane this morning?
Well, I saw absolutely jaw-dropping recon right before I decided to head off, get some sleep. I'm back now all the way till landfall, but basically, it's done about what I expected it to do. It's a storm now with winds up to 150 miles an hour. This is an extremely dangerous situation. It's one of those things where it's about as bad as it gets. And the important thing now, if you're in Louisiana, especially if you're along the shore, especially because time's up for evacuations, is figuring out how you're going to keep yourself safe throughout this storm. So the main thoughts are, the fact that we are getting the first signs that this storm. First of all, this storm is still rapidly dropping in pressure. But secondly, the thing I guess that I really want to hammer home is that regardless of how strong this gets, the impacts are going to be about the same. At this point, 150 to 160 miles an hour isn't going to lead to much difference in the grand scheme of things. We're already in upper echelon category 4 territory. So, the reality is we're seeing the first signs that this thing could be up to 155, 160 within the next couple hours if it continues its rate of intensification. But regardless of that, you should be treating it the same way.
Yeah. And just like Thomas, I was here for overnight as well, and this is I'm in the same row as Thomas. I woke up and all of a sudden I see that this thing's on the edge of Category 5, and frankly, I'm not that surprised because of how it fast intensified last night right before I headed off. Um, and I believe that this is not a good situation at all. Like, this is possibly one of the worst situations we've ever seen on the U.S. team. Or not just the U.S. team, but in Force 13 in general. This is really bad. This is
That
exactly
is, and
why we have to live stream, because this live stream is able to help those who are in the area who did not, who
Oh,
are
I have some news.
what's that?
We have a drop sound which suggests that the storm's central pressure is now 929 millibars.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
that's from extrapolated pressures. Do we have a drop
No,
sound yet?
that's drop
No,
sound.
there's an
Drop
eye drop
sound?
sound with
Oh dear, yep.
932 at the surface, but with a 34 knot wind.
Yep,
Oh
pressure
my
down to
god.
929. That is confirmed. I can confirm as a cyclone analyst that's yep.
And
That's
also,
right.
on visible imagery on radar, you can see multiple signs that the storm hasn't stopped to intensify. First of all, you see those pretty intense gravity waves now. This one in the western eye wall, and still convective bursts firing within the eye wall, wrapping around. And on IDA, on radar, the reflectivities in the eye wall are increasing, especially on the southern side, which is also associated with increase in vertical growth. Someone posted a product and he said a strong vertical growth in the southern portion of the eye wall, and also you have lightning in the eye wall, which is cyclonically rotating around with those very intense hot towers. So this storm isn't done intensifying, and it could very well be peaking as Category 5 system before making landfall.
And the NAC did say that they have the forecast peak of 155 miles an hour, but they said it is possible it could peak even higher.
A question just now about the eye temperature once again. Earlier we had 19, right now it's at 13, and that will oscillate, of course. 15 actually, but it's going to remain decent temperatures. And as I was saying before some of our other members joined, we've seen Category 5s that look worse than this on satellite.
We
Yeah, and
have.
also,
Oh, certainly.
oh yeah, Thomas, go ahead.
I was going to say we certainly have, and I think that it just goes to show that that is what we could be looking at here in the next couple hours. It's not that difficult to think that this could go all the way. So we're just going to have to see. But right now, that pressure of 929, that's locked in. An upgrade to 155 may be underway. There's some data crunching going on back here. I'll let you know as soon as I know whether an upgrade to 155 is needed. But as of now, that pressure is confirmed to be all the way down to 929 millibars. So the storm is continuing to rapidly intensify.
And our latest position estimate has the storm 45 miles from Port Fortune now. That is the closest point to where we're expecting landfall now, not Grand Isle.
Yep. I can confirm that we are running with 155 miles per hour, 929 millibars. Force 13 is now up to 155 miles per hour for Ida here.
And I want to point out as well that within the past 6 hours, this storm went from 115 miles per hour to 155 miles per hour. That is extremely explosive intensification, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not showing any signs of stopping. I'm still seeing really prominent eyeball lightning with this thing, so it's far from done, at least for now.
Also, Force 13 themselves have upgraded to 155 miles per hour, 929 millibars, or 928 millibars. Oh wait, no.
We have 155, 929. Again, reconnaissance aircraft data does support that. Looking at the latest data here, we have very clear indications that the storm is now up there. We have SFMRs that are up there. We also have flight level winds up to about 148, 149 knots. So the combination of those things is enough for 155 miles an hour.
And unfortunately, it looks as though in the southeastern quadrant of the storm, it looks as though it's still intensifying, and the gravity waves are huge. So
Yeah,
this is
I'm
not good.
inclined to agree.
Yeah,
If
this
No, it's not.
this one gravity wave is extremely impressive on the visible satellite imagery, and you can also see that this eye wall has some of the most intense reflectivities that I've seen in hurricane eye walls. In the eastern side of the eye wall, there are some spots of up to 50 dBz, which is pretty rare to see in hurricanes.
It is rare to see that in hurricanes, especially like along the eye wall like this.
Yeah.
And it's a sign, especially when the reflectivity values are greater on the southern side than the northern side, when the storm is coming to a radar to the north of it. It's a sign that the storm is still attempting to intensify. It's still trying to fire off new convection, new thunderstorm activity, and get that to wrap all the way around the center. So this storm, we've been saying it a lot, but I think it bears repeating. This storm is still strengthening, and it's still strengthening rapidly.
And this is why we wanted everyone to evacuate, because this. And I just posted in the live discussion thread radar imagery that really hammers it home. I've never seen any hurricane like this. Is what
I'm just gonna say, Ida needs to go. What was Laura at landfall?
150.
150.
Pressure.
937 millibars was the lowest
Okay,
pressure of
so
Aurora, if I
it
remember
was
correctly.
nowhere near this. Okay, so Ida needs to go 7 millibars to tie, 8 millibars to beat Andrew to be top 5 most intense, I guess, at landfall is what I'm reading in the US, but that may be incorrect. I have to do more research on that.
It'll be up there.
Regardless, this is going to be a very intense tropical cyclone. It will be one of the most intense in terms of pressure that's ever hit the United States. We're solidly into the 920s now, and the expectation is that the pressure will continue to sink over the next few hours. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what takes place. But right now, 155 miles per hour, 929 millibars, absolutely devastating storm surge is on the way. Absolutely catastrophic wind damage is on the way. At this point, the distinction between Category 4 and 5 no longer matters. It's right on the edge. So again, this no longer matters. We are at a point where no matter how much stronger the storm gets, the impacts are going to be about the same. Unfortunately, we've gotten to that point.
And also, I have some things from Kefi that he put it into the North Atlantic chat. He calculated that the storm has now had a deepening rate throughout the last few hours of 6 millibars per hour, which
Yeah.
is incredible. And also, we have a new increase in lightning activity in the southeastern side, which lightning in the owl is almost certainly a sign that the storm is still strengthening, especially when the lightning activity wraps around. That means that incredibly intense updrafts are wrapping around, releasing a lot of heat, and that correlates to pressure falls. We should expect that the storm is still strengthening, maybe even at a rapid pace.
As you see on your screen, 96-mile-an-hour winds measured as a little over 30 minutes ago from this station, 42 miles south-southeast of Grand Isle. So that's, again, like I said, about 30-40 minutes out of date, and they're about to, well, they're actually probably right now in the worst of the worst the hurricane has to offer here, so probably not going to be getting any more readings from that, I would imagine. But interesting data nonetheless, and you can see this is velocity on your left and reflectivity on your right, and the velocity on your left is off the scale. It goes up to 141 and stops, and it's off the scale on my end for the eastern
Wow.
quadrant at the very least.
I can get you an exact number on the velocity maxima. The velocity maxima is 156 knots.
Cool.
Gee.
That is way up in the air, though. I'd like to note that is 13,000 feet up in the air. Aircraft reconnaissance is about 3,000 feet in the air. The winds are significantly lower as you head closer to the surface, but it means that there are winds, very, very strong winds above the surface, trying to mix down. And even if the storm stopped its pressure falling right now, if it caught up properly, it would still manage to exceed the 160-mile-an-hour threshold. So regardless of whether the storm stops deepening right now or not, the winds still haven't fully caught up to it.
You're essentially saying that it's going to be a Category 5.
I'm essentially saying that all indications point to this becoming a Category 5 in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, everything's lining up for it.
Could we have
see.
some radar on the screen?
I'm not going to
or-
call it completely because we don't know yet.
Yep.
But right now, there is not much reason for this thing not to get to Category 5.
And here's what I've done. I've done my research. Yes, if it gets to 922, it would tie Andrew for 5th most intense U.S. landfall pressure-wise. Number 4 on the list, Katrina. And it was not a Cat 5 at landfall. It was a Cat 3, but it had a pressure of 920.
I've just
Imagine
seen...
if Ida beats Katrina pressure-wise and also makes landfall as a Cat 5 16 years to the day of Katrina.
I've just seen a eye temperature of 23.
23. Wow.
Warming.
What have we been getting? Like how much different is that from what we've been getting?
Way above anything. In the early hours, the maximum we got was 19. Generally, it was around 15 to 16, and now 23. And it's getting a hexagonal look, that eye, right now as well.
Yeah, on radar.
Strengthening.
On radar, we're starting to see that hexagonal look. That is a sign of 6 mesovortices spinning around the eye. In the more mesovortices like that you have, the more strengthening that's taking place, the more rapid updrafts of air you're getting. So this is a very bad sign in terms of just how quickly it continues to strengthen.
I think a classic example of a hexagonal eye would be Typhoon Von Fon in 2014, and that peaked at 180 miles an hour, if memory serves me right. I'm not saying that that's exactly what this storm is going to do, but just to let you know what type of territory this type of structure is in. Yeah, really more bad news with time here, unfortunately. I hate to say.
And the eye looks more and more solid on On the radar, it's a full. For me, it's at least a full ring of at least 32 dBz, and
Yep.
some spots all the way up to 50 in the eastern, northeastern part of the eye wall, and also the southern. And also, as has been noted, increased lightning activity in the southeastern quadrant, um, which correlates to strengthening of the storm, and also in the entire southern quadrant, lightning activity active.
Alrighty, and I would just like to mention we have our second tornado warning of Ida. Tornado warning in Alabama, including Bayou La Batterie, Dolphin Island, and Fort Morgan and Heron Bay until 8 a.m. Central Daylight Time.
Yep, that's
So,
true. That's a
if
radar indicated
it
tornado.
is a radar indicated tornado right on the shorelines.
So again, tornado precautions. Get to the lowest level of a sturdy building in an interior room. Make sure you're safe. Hurricanes can produce numerous tornadoes all across the impact area. But right now we have many threats with this. The rainfall threat, which is already taking place, the winds, which are about to move ashore, the tornado threat, which we're already beginning to see, and the storm surge threat, which is slowly ramping up with time. I think we actually have a camera up on the stream that demonstrates quite well that we're definitely seeing surge start to take its toll on certain areas.
Yeah, Isaac.
Yeah, just about an hour ago, you could, if you wanted to, you could easily probably cross this road just fine, and now it's probably impassable at this point, or I would think it's impassable at this point. You could see water fully crossing the other side of the road there, winds increasing, rain increasing, and like I've been saying over and over again, the conditions are only going to get worse from here. So this is not the worst of it right now. It's only going to get worse from here. Keep that in mind. Um, so if you're in that area, I know there are some people allegedly, or that have been confirmed to be over, way north of this camera that have still not managed to evacuate, and they're probably gonna stay there when this hurricane hits. And I really wish them the best because seeing stuff like this happen already, it's not a really good sign to say the least. And yeah, it's just saddens me to see that a lot of people have stayed at least up in that part of the state.
Well, there's another demonstration of that hexagon. It just had for one frame there. Another frame's just come out, which has skewed it a little bit. But I just think that's a really interesting shape when they do that. But the latest frame, I'm not sure what exactly is going on there. I think it's convection blowing up that's making it look like the eastern side of the eye is shrinking, when in fact convection is blowing up, actually obscuring that part of the eye, with some massive cloud tops that are blowing up once again there on the eastern side.
I can confirm on radar, which is slightly ahead, that that is exactly what's happened, and that eastern eye wall is now far more robust, and you're about to see that convective burst fan out pretty quickly, and the eye return to its normal shape. You can actually see it on your radar that you have up right now, just how
Sure.
perfectly circular that eye nearly looks right now.
That is menacing. That is
And you can
absolutely just, that is terrifying. I mean I don't mean to laugh, but I'm just so nervous for what's to come here for the people that have stayed. This is You're seeing it here. It's just getting better and better in terms of the storm's intensity. It's getting higher and higher, and you're seeing it on the radar. It's just I'm just at a loss for words.
Current distance estimate 42 miles from a point just east of Port Fortune, and that area itself actually. Grand Isle Beach 43 miles away from the eye of the storm. Golden Meadow 60 miles, and La Rose, which you mentioned earlier, 75 miles.
Nathan, do we have visible imagery up on the stream?
We've got plenty of visible imagery, yes. This is the one that I've been using quite often recently.
Okay, so you can see on that visible imagery that there is convective bursts firing on the northeastern side on the eastern eye wall. Those look pretty impressive. and show that there's still a lot of steam with the storm and it's not done weakening. And you can also see fanning out those intense gravity waves, really looking impressive. It really has on Visible a look of a high-end upper echelon hurricane. This is really an impressive look, and it still has about 5 to 6 hours to strengthen over open water before landfall. And the pressure has constantly been falling, so usually you have winds catching up to that. So it's nearly guaranteed that this is gonna be a at least 155-mile-an-hour hurricane, if
Yeah.
not 160 at this point. And really, it really doesn't matter how much it strengthens. The impacts are gonna be catastrophic. You're gonna have catastrophic, life-threatening storm surge and catastrophic, life-threatening winds near the area of the eye, and even
Yep.
outside, hurricane force winds. Those are life-threatening too.
I would like to note that Devin Williams was on earlier this evening, and he said that if the storm gets this strong, even with the NHC's 12 to 16 foot storm surge prediction, he said local areas can expect well over 20 feet of storm surge in Louisiana,
Jesus.
which is right at the landfall zone, and especially to areas just east. He's saying, yeah, over 20 feet of storm surge is not. It's not out of the question, and it's actually more likely than not. My goodness.
Noticing the winds still gradually increasing on the Leeville camera. And let me go ahead and actually go back to the one that's overlooking the highway.
Sure.
So I can find it again. I want to see how that's changed in the past few minutes. Really curious to see. And again, these cameras are in Leeville, so that's going to be south of Galano, or due west pretty much of Grand Isle, Louisiana, which is where the other camera Nathan has is from. And yeah, look at that. Wow.
Yeah,
And
and
just this
also,
morning, you could easily walk across this entire stretch of land this morning before sunrise, and now you cannot do that anymore.
Yeah.
also the recon has been going into the weakest quadrant and found a solid Category 4 support there, which hasn't been the case earlier. So it's likely that the storm has been strengthening since the
The,
last few passes, which is
the winds have ramped up quite a bit in that southern quadrant, even since we've got the 929. So winds are definitely ramping up. We will be continuing to monitor reconnaissance data very closely. If the cyclone analysts make a call, we will let you know. If the cyclone analysts do make the call for this to become a Category 5. As of now, 155 miles per hour, 929 millibars as it approaches shore. The storm doesn't have too much longer before it does hit land, but it has virtually unlimited energy to deal with, as those sea surface temperatures are just insane. And even though it's out of the eddy at this point, the only reason that the OHC here isn't as high is because of the physical shallowness of the shore. The waters themselves will be more than enough to sustain this thing all the way up to landfall.
And also one thing to note is that the lightning in the eye wall is now rotating around with the circulation of the storm, which is a pretty good sign that we have vertical hot towers that manage to wrap around the circulation, and that is a sure sign of strengthening usually when you have lightning cyclonically wrapping around the circulation.
I've also noticed, speaking of eyewall lightning, that the lightning is pretty much on the entire eastern quadrant of the hurricane, as opposed to only the southeast earlier. So it's yeah, it's definitely meaning business here.
Yeah, and I'm seeing even more 50 dBz or more spots in the southern eye wall.
Yeah, I'm seeing it too. And you can just see there the, like as the storm moves closer to radar, you expect that your radar returns are going to go up. But at the rate that the radar returns are increasing, we can say pretty much with certainty that a lot of that reason is not just because the storm's moving closer, it's because it's intensifying and that eye wall is getting even more robust.
Yeah.
And our team usually, I mean, I of course founded our group nearly 10 years ago, and I've always valued not hyping things up, and I think our team adopt those same values, really. This is not really something that we are hyping up at all. It's something that this is the big one in a way.
It is.
Jesus.
It's the kind of hurricane that we've all feared, to occur. And I think that people, especially in somewhere like Golden Meadow and Grand Isle, oh my, you need to be
You need to be in your safe place.
you need to be in your safe place right now. The outer bands of the inner core are they're pretty much there. Storm surge is about to ramp up rapidly. You're about to get the eye wall of this thing. So it's time to really start hunkering down, especially if you're over there.
We're slowly getting data in from a buoy that's entering the eye at the moment, and it's already at 1150 G at 967.8 millibars. At visibility
wow.
of 0 kilometers, so that's right in the eye wall. And
Wowee.
that means it's really dropping fast.
A dew point all the way up to 26 Celsius.
I'm not sure what reliable radar is to determine how strong a storm is, but radar in New Orleans is picking up winds in the eastern quadrant supportive of over 155 miles per hour, and quite a few of those with not just one or two, but multiple areas.
Is
I
this
would
the
like-
NOAA or the Air Force?
No,
No,
this is
different to
Doppler
radar.
radar. I would like to note that
Oh.
Doppler radar is way higher than recon, so the winds are going to be way higher than what you'll actually get at the surface. But we're getting a solid 150-ish knots, 155-ish knots, which down to the surface, when you're this high up in the air, converts to a solid 150 to 155 miles an hour. So once I start seeing 160 knots and above on Doppler radar, I fully anticipate that's about when we're going to start seeing recon show those first Cat 5 readings.
Apparently, the
Air Force.
eastern eye wall got SFMR of 131 knots.
Yeah, I saw that earlier. It was when what's it called? The Air Force plane was just going in circles, but I'm not sure where it was it found that. We have a northwest to southeast pass on the Air Force recon. Looks like we have a peak there in the southeast quadrant of 127, or sorry, 125. Okay, 121 flight level, then 123 SFMR, 125 flight level with 117 SFMR, and then a 127 flight level with a 102 SFMR in the southeast quadrant.
We've had a lot of questions about the CDPS and what is it on the CDPS scale recently.
From what I remember, and this
The stage
is
7.
Yep, stage 7. That is what Devin said. High 7. That is what he said before he went to sleep. The only way we get upped is if Cat 5.
Yep, that knocks it up to stage 8.
Thomas, how would you describe a high-end stage 7?
A high-end stage 7 is it's worse than Gustav. It's worse than Ike. It's pretty bad. We're starting to move into very dangerous territory. in terms of storms. Devin basically described that once you get up to high-end stage 7, you're looking at just absolutely devastating damage. Whenever CDPS stage 8 comes around, if it does, and this becomes a category 5, Devin said, and of course, since he's the creator, he knows best. He said that that's when you're starting to get into Katrina levels of destruction.
Oh boy.
The winds will be so strong that this storm will be able to push up so much surge that it'll manage to push the amount of surge that it needs in order to really get into that destructive territory. Basically, Katrina had Cat 5 surge as a Cat 3, so it would make sense that a semi-normal sized storm would have Cat 5 surge as a Cat 5. So
Yep.
we'll see what happens here, but it's concerning information, and I don't like making direct comparisons to
Sure.
the most devastating storm to make landfall in recent memory in the United States, and one of the most devastating in the world. But
Who's that?
This is where we're at.
I've no idea who that is. Someone's trying to call me, apparently.
Oh.
I didn't. That doesn't usually appear on my screen. But whoever EK is, then you've got a shout out right there. In any case, that is, from what you were saying there, very true. But what I was hearing last night is whether how small the storm is in terms of its wind field, its size, and how much has it grown since then?
It hasn't grown too much, I don't believe. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't been keeping specific track of it, but I believe that the hurricane force wind fields expanded a fair bit. The tropical storm force wind fields remained about the same.
From the 5 a.m. full advisory to the 8 a.m. special advisory, hurricane force winds went up from 40 miles to 50 miles, and tropical storm force winds stayed the same at 140. I'm not sure the exact in the quadrants, though.
Yep. And, we'll see what the, because I believe, at the last part of the recon data that we have gotten previously, it looked like it was circling within the eye just to get a better, perhaps. So we'll see what it does. And also, it looks like a new drop zone has come in. And
from the NOAA plane, we have
a new drop sonde which directly supports. We'll see what happens. At least 155 miles an hour.
What?
All right. We've got breaking news, and Ethan just pinged the live team roll for this.
Is it correct news before you say it?
Yeah,
it is correct news.
Extreme wind warnings for
Okay.
Jefferson, LaForge, Plaquemine, St. Bernard, St. Charles, and Terrebonne parishes.
Extreme wind warning. Those happen during these kinds of situations. I remember when they had it for Harvey, actually, when we did coverage on that, and I'm sure they've done it with several other storms that I've forgotten about. I imagine they had it for Michael.
Yeah, they had it for Michael.
I believe their criteria for that is if they believe winds over 130 miles an hour are going to be felt along the coastline or any cities, they issue that, if I'm not mistaken. If I could be wrong.
Also, a new drop zone came in, and the drop zone indicates
Eastern eye wall from the NOAA plane, but go ahead.
Yeah, and I believe it indicates 135 knots of SFMR. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It's not SFMR, it's just surface wind. But yes, that's at least 155 miles per hour. When taking the lower level averages, we're really starting to get into borderline territory here. Still 155, but it's on the edge now.
The eye of the storm now 39 miles from Port Fortune.
And we have flight level wind of 148 knots. As a reminder, just 5 knots more, and the storm is officially a Category 5. 153 knots would round down to 137.7, I think, and that would round up to 140. So we have an increase in flight level wind. This supports 135 knots directly through flight level wind conversion, and just 5 knots more, and that's a Category 5 system right there.
Oh, we wait on SFMRs as well. 6 minutes ago, now 7 minutes ago, Reed Timmer now heading to higher ground. If we rode out the storm in this area, which I'm not sure which area he's in, we would likely die. Surgeonators deployed. I'm not sure where Reed Timmer is chasing the storm, but he's probably somewhere in a low-lying area where they're gonna get a bunch of surge.
He's in a low marsh near Golden Meadow. He's decided that he wanted to be right in the middle of it. So yeah, it's time at this point. He's closer to shore than that, but
he's south of Houma, but yeah, that's in the 8 to 12 over there. I know Texas Storm Chasers were over in La Rose. They decided to get out because there would be a bunch of flying debris because the entire town is just built out of wood and tin, and that's also a marsh where they don't have levee protection, so that would get surge as well. So a bunch of these professional storm chasers, they're getting out of there right now.
Yeah, Reed is south of Dulac, Louisiana, for reference. At least in that latest tweet of his, I believe.
We have a new cone just tweeted to the 413 account. This is made by our own Ethan Brunning.
We do have some quite significant news that unfortunately I do agree with here. We are calling now for a Category 5 landfall.
And I will say this as the update
9:30
is in.
On their update.
National Hurricane Center down to 930 millibars. Makes sense.
50 miles an hour.
National Hurricane Center still going with 150. The latest. I don't know if the latest flight level wind got into that, but the very latest flight level wind reading we have 148 knots. That supports 155 miles per hour at the surface.
That, in conjunction with the latest dropson data, basically shows that while the SFMRs are not exactly with it right now, but the standard mixing ratio from flight level to surface seems to be pretty on point. Dropsons have been confirming that throughout the mission today.
Well, in light of that news, by the way, an elevated NOAA Seaman station at Southwest Pass, Louisiana, recently reported a sustained wind of 105 miles an hour and a wind gust of 121. What was that? I thought I heard something just then. But we're going to take a break now. We'll be back in a few minutes, and obviously we'll have more on this continuing coverage of Hurricane Ida. Likely to be a very devastating hurricane at this point. There's no two ways about it, I'm afraid. We'll be back shortly with more coverage as this storm continues to progress towards landfall. We're probably just a few hours away from it now. live coverage will continue in a moment.